just to give you an indication of why we want to have AAK present to the group, a lot of us know about plant-based food formulations, particularly as plant-based meat burgers and ice creams and things have been taking off internationally. Fats and lipids are, of course, an essential component of plant-based foods. And what we have today is a global leading company in the plant-based foods industry, as well as, of course, the broader fats industry to present to us about that. So we're going to be doing a lot with AAK Kamani and AAK over the next year or so to stimulate the plant-based ecosystem in India. So I will hand over to Dheeraj Salre.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. And would like to thank Good Food Institute for organizing this call. I think before I jump into that, I would like to introduce my colleagues on the call. So we have on the call, starting with a colleague from India, Rahul Gupte, who is our head of marketing in India, followed by Michael Scriver, who is our chief commercial officer for Asia. At the same time, he heads the business in Northeast Asia market with that, and he's based out of Denmark. Then we have Niall Sands, who is our global president for plant-based foods. And we have Xavier, who takes care of our customer innovation piece for plant-based food on a global scale with that. And I actually am a COO with AAK Kamani India with that. So I think with a quick introduction of the team on the call, I'll pass it on to Michael Scriver to take us quickly through about AAK.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for joining and the Good Food for arranging this. Yes, my name is Michael Scriver and I've been working with AAK in Asia for the last 7-8 years and 20 years in AAK. And AAK, if we look at this as a company, we are working on the fat phase of many products, and we would have more than 20 companies or factories around the world. And of course, this one, AAK Kamani, that Dheeraj will explain later. If you look at what AAK is doing, we deliver the specialty fats. So it's not when you work on big volume, simple fats, but it's like if you have a leading position in the chocolate field or in the nutrition or the plant-based, and you want to have a great experience and a high level of sustainability, that is the kind of stuff AAK works with. If you go to the next slide, we can also see that AAK, we are not a young teenager company, even we still think we are quite strong in inventing new ideas. So we were starting almost 150 years ago in Scandinavia, so in 1871 in Europe. But then if you look through the times, whenever there has been revolution, that be in the bakery industry, in the chocolate industry, in the nutrition industry, AAK has invented a lot of new products. And that is because we work in a special way. That means we work very, very close with our customers on R&D, developing new stuff, which you'll also see today. To do that around the world, if you look at the next slide, you'll see we have a lot of the centers that we call customer innovation centers, where we can work with the bigger customers on projects, where we have small pilot scale factories. So we would have a chocolate factory, we would have a plant-based meat small scale factory. And in that sense, we can make prototypes together with our customers. So that is one of the unique differentiators of how AAK is working. One of those is, of course, in Mumbai, where we have this capability now. And I will leave it time now for our colleagues in India to continue presenting that.
Thanks, Michael. Having heard about AAK and a global organization with a vision to provide a value-adding specialty oil and fat solution, AAK journey in India started with a collaboration or a joint venture with Kamani Health Oils. AAK has more than 100 years of history, and Kamani Oil also was a pioneer of specialty oil and fat in India. And then there were similar ideology around approaching the customers around product development on that, with a strong focus on customer engagement and customer centricity with that. Few of the strengths or a few of the laurels about our organization in India. We have a strong product development team, and we are able to cater to all the different needs, right from RSPO to kosher with that, we have our plant is DSIR approved, and we are also WHO approved plant when it comes to the medical nutrition, because from the same plant we supply products to chocolate and confectionery industry, we supply to bakery, we supply to plant-based food, we supply to personal care industry with that, and we are a member of RSPO, GMP certified plant, GMP certified plant, and FSSC 22000 with that. And a strong network on sourcing and trading where sustainability plays a key role. And we also go to the extent of traceable sources of raw material with that. Having talked about few strengths of the local organization, how do we approach about the business with that? So the core philosophy as an organization is the core development approach that we take with every customer across the globe. And this core development approach is adaptable to your needs. So we support everyone in the journey, right from ideation till the commercial launch of the product. So we work on a market-driven solutions. We work on creating a customized solution and help improving that functions and features of the products with that, and also scaling up the prototype, scaling up or the commercial production of any product with that. All our customer innovation center, which Michael was mentioning about, that has a full-scale pilot plants for the chocolate confectionery, for nutrition, for dairy, for bakery, and we have a global center of excellence for plant-based food at this point of time in Europe, and we are in the process of putting up a innovation center in India and in Singapore with that. So that's the process that we take normally around any product development with that. So we hold our customer and the new entrepreneurs and the developers around that in every stage of product development cycle. Having talked about this one, I'll request Niyal, who is our global president for plant-based food, to take us through what's happening in the space of plant-based food across the globe.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Niall Sands. I am based in Dublin, in Ireland, and I'm accountable for our plant-based foods business unit. So I'm honored to be invited.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, Niall. We're having a little bit of disturbance on your microphone. Would you mind adjusting it so we can hear a little better?
Yeah.
Could you try again? I'll just let you know if we can hear you better.
I think you just have to get closer.
That better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. So yes, my name is Niall Sands. I am accountable for our global plant-based foods business unit, and I am based in Dublin, in Ireland. So I am honoured to be on this call with you this afternoon. So our diets are changing, and they continue to change. We have seen over this past number of months and years that consumers are consciously reducing their meat intake in particular. Consumers are better informed today more than ever, and we see the prominence and move towards either a vegan lifestyle, a vegetarian lifestyle, or in particular a flexitarian lifestyle, where consumers are consciously reducing their intake of meat and moving towards a plant-based diet, and in great numbers. So we see this as a global trend, and in each of the regions where we're operating, we see this dynamic with customers. Next slide, please. And with that, we see the growth in plant-based foods in the market data. This in particular is focused on the US market, but it's representative of, again, most of the regions with which we operate and the data that we will be analysing. And we see that as an overall category, plant-based foods is outpacing traditional food categories. And as you zoom in on, in particular, some of the subcategories under the umbrella of plant-based foods, again, we see the outperformance of plant-based meat, plant-based milk, and plant-based cheese versus the standard equivalent. And clearly this presents opportunities for us in the industry to continue to provide this offer for consumers, which is clearly in demand. And ultimately, depending on the market research that you analyze and you read, over the next 10 years, out to 2030, we see data supporting plant-based meat growing to $140 billion of retail value sales. And we see plant-based meat forecasts or plant-based dairy growing up to $70 billion over the next 10 years. So that's a phenomenal growth considering the base today. Next slide, please. So with that, why are we seeing this change? It ultimately comes down to the consumer, what they're doing at the point of purchase. And whenever we distill through the information, and we have conducted focus groups and research with customers and consumers, there is 3 key takeaways that keep coming back to us. The drive around health. So there is a perception that moving to plant-based food is actually a health choice, and therefore that is creating this move into plant-based foods. We see sustainability in terms of the sourcing of the ingredients that goes into the food, and the richness of those supply chains and the integrity within those supply chains. But we also see there's a genuine concern in terms of sustainability of the planet, and therefore having supply chains that take into consideration being carbon negative, carbon neutral, is a huge driver for consumers moving into the plant-based foods world, as well as lifestyle. Again, that's a prominent feature that comes through in the research. And next slide, please. This is actually supported by many activities and campaigns that we see in social media, in the mainstream media, and actually through the TV that we're digesting as well, where campaigns and activities are making it and encouraging people to move to a plant-based lifestyle. And it's obviously making this move much easier. So whereby traditional veganism maybe 10 years ago was less than 5% of the population, through a flexitarian lifestyle, and given the amount of choice that there is out there at the moment, we see that making this switch into a meat-free lifestyle and a plant-based diet is actually easier, again, through media, through campaigns, but also by the fact that the products today taste fantastic. So with culinary excellence, evolving food science, evolving technology, we see that the sensory experience and the taste experience of plant-based foods, you're no longer compromising on taste and flavor. So again, this is helping to promote the move and the switch into a plant-based diet. Next slide. And needless to say, this is not just a phenomenon within traditional retail. This is multi-channel. So it is obviously very, very strong in food service as well. But we also see micro industries and micro channels being created as a consequence of plant-based foods. And again, the example would be tourism, or even some boutique hotels that, as well as having the spa experience, they're also having the culinary experience of having a healthy diet by having their menus very much dedicated to plant-based foods. So it's very conducive with the overall experience. Next slide. So from an AAK perspective, what are we doing about it? So we have a really strong heritage, as Michael said earlier. We are in existence for over 140 years. And if you think about vegetable oils and where they come from, it goes back to plants. So the raw material that we've been dealing with, handling and managing and producing over this past 140 years is plant-based. So we have a very strong heritage in this, and as a consequence of that, we have established a plant-based foods business unit, which I am leading, in order to support customers on the journey to plant-based foods. So again, there's a phenomenal amount of activity that has happened and is happening in this space. And in AAK, we have developed our hero brand in this space called AAK, which has been designed to support customers in product development and innovation with respect to plant-based foods. And again, given sustainability is a key driver of consumers making the switch, we have got sustainability underpinning the AAK brand. Next slide. So with that, we are investing. We are investing in people and we are investing in infrastructure. So we will build a dedicated plant-based foods global center of excellence in Europe to support our customers in the product development and innovations that are going to drive this category in the months and years ahead. Very much focused on meat applications, meat alternatives, and dairy alternatives. Within this, we will have a sensory space with sensory cabins. So again, one of the main challenges we have in plant-based foods is actually the taste experience. So by having focus group rooms and sensory cabins, as well as delivering the fat solution, we can actually work with peers in the industry to deliver a phenomenal taste and sensory experience with these products that we develop. And obviously then to showcase these products, we have a culinary kitchen and suite, which we will be using to demonstrate the new products and innovations we bring to market in this open and collaborative forum. Next slide, please. And in terms of how we build this facility, again, it's like AAK, it's with sustainability at its core. So we will be using materials in the construction of this building that anchor back to the sustainability credentials that is driving this market. And also in terms of some of the sources of energy, the sources of water, we're looking at renewable energy sources and maybe harvesting of water in order to make sure that this is a facility that's anchored and tied back to the drivers in this market space. So we have had quite a lot of success over this past 18 months, and we're very, very confident about the journey that we're embarking upon. We look forward to working with the Good Food Institute in India and its members. And I would now like to hand over to my colleague Javier, who will take you through the solutions that we have for a number of key applications in plant-based foods. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Javier, and I'm the Global Innovation Lead for Plant-Based Foods. And I'm going to take you through some of the applications we're having and how the fat actually is impacting both the taste, the flavor, the texture, the smell of release, and all these different characteristics that are very important when you want to have actually a product that replicates the real dairy or the real meat in this case. So you want to go one slide ahead, please? So what is that people really care about? Well, already that one. What people care about mostly is about taste and enjoyment. So of course, health and sustainability are very important drivers, but you as consumer, you will do repeat buys when something tastes good. I mean, it's the main reason why consumers are buying food, right? It's an enjoyment moment. So now next one. So fat is a critical ingredient when we talk about plant-based foods. I've been part of this community of the alternative protein for a while, and I keep hearing a lot about choose the right protein. You know, you need to use soy, chickpea, fava, all about proteins. But there is this factor that we are maybe forgetting about, that fat plays as much of an important role as protein does in this movement, because you cannot have a food product without fat. It needs to have this ingredient, this oil and fat. It gives a lot of different properties that you could not have. And that's something that now producers are realizing, and we're working with them to make sure that they're having the right combination of ingredients to have in the final product. For example, if you talk about a burger, a plant-based fat can give you the right juiciness. It can add succulence to the product. And you need to have that when you bite it. You need to have this release of fattiness, juice, to make a good sensory profile to the product. It can help with the taste and texture as well, because it can have different properties. It can be a harder fat, it can be a more liquid fat, and of course all of these things are very important when you actually bite in the product. So it's not too hard, it's not too soft, it's not too grainy. It is also very important when we talk about the nutritional profile, because of course you also want to have a product that contains the right fats. We see that most of the products right now in the market contain coconut oil, which is okay, but of course there is many other probably solutions that can help, because we all know that coconut oil is very high in saturated fats. So that's also something we're working in actively every time. Something else, for example, that can, it's still on the same one. It can also help you to build on your sustainability story, because of course, you know, depending on where you are supplying the oil, it can come from a place that is more sustainable. It can have smallholders involved. Let's say, for example, that can have people that have been on the same farms for centuries of years, collecting the oil from different trees. All of those things help also for consumers to understand how important it is where ingredients are coming from. This is regarding the burgers, but if we talk about cheese, you get again the same. You can actually make tastiest cheese in the same way by using the right fats. It is because the fat is also pretty much involved on the melting, on the browning of the products. It can also be involved in the grating and sliceability. So if you don't have the right fat, for example, you will have a cheese that will stick to each other. It can help to optimize the nutritional profile, and the same with the frozen dessert. And I will go through this one by one in the next slides. So please, next. So when we talk about plant-based foods, we talk a lot about burgers, ice cream, frozen desserts, substituting things. But if we think about eating experiences, we actually eat a full meal. So when we talk about the burger, there is a lot of work done in making the right patty. But what about the rest of the burger, right? When we eat a burger, I have seen a lot of articles, for example, in Burger King, that they might have a vegan patty, but then maybe the cheese is not vegan. So what is the point there? And that's a place where AAK is there to help our customers, right? We can be all across the different components of the food and the meals. For example, we are in the vegan bun, we can be in the patty, in the cheese, in the plant-based mayo, and in all of these, we know how to develop the right fat solutions to help you develop the final product. Next one. So here is expanding a little bit more on the meat again, that depending on what type of fat you use, it can create a better experience, a better bite. And it's very important. We see a lot of customers coming to us and they are making us questions about why isn't the burger, why is it sticking? For example, when the burger is being cooked, it sticks. And that is because they're not using the right fat blend. If they use, for example, an oil that is very liquid, it will just get out of the burger and then the burger will get stuck to the pan. So that's one of the reasons why making and choosing the right oil is very important. Also, it helps a lot, for example, with the flavor release. Flavor particles, they are mostly lipid soluble. And if you are not able to create the right combination of an oil and a flavor, when you eat any product, you won't taste it. So it's very important that actually we are developing solutions that contain, and that's one of the things we do. We work together with other type of ingredient companies like flavor and fragrances and emulsifiers. And by this way, we're able to provide solutions that work together with other ingredients and make, for example, that you get the right release of taste when you bite into a product, which is key for consumers. Next slide. And this is another slide to show you a little bit more concrete on how, for example, fat works within the matrix. Here we have, as you can see, a burger, and then we have actually a real picture, but we'll stay in this slide for now. We can see, for example, that when you eat a burger, you see in the real ones, in like real meat burgers, you see some small pockets, whitish. You see like some lumps of whiteness, right? You know what that is? That is actually the fat. And this is actually something that we need to help to replicate in the plant-based burgers. So something we do is we are able to actually supply solutions in different formats. And this is one of our expertises. And why fat is so important? Because if you just were using, let's say, a liquid oil or an oil that hasn't been researched, then you will actually don't get the packets of oil into the product. So we have different types of formats into the products. Solid fats, you can have liquid oils, you can have pumpable, pre-crystallized blends, emulsions. And what you see here with this lamp I don't have the mouse, but you can see on the picture on the center with the magnifier, you can see a particulated fat. And if we go to the next slide, then you can actually see it on real products. And this is what we call the marbling effect. So here we have 4 burgers. The one on the top left, that's Gordon Gourmet from Nestle. The one on the right, that's Beyond Meat. The one below, that one is 100% beef. And then we have D, which is a prototype. And if you look closely, let's look at the beef first. You can already see that the beef has these whitish portions of the burger, right? But if you look into Beyond, you see, in this case, you don't see anything. They don't have that. And if you look into Garden Gourmet, you see a little bit, right? But it doesn't look closer to the real thing. And what you can see in this is just a prototype of how a product could look. And here is very exaggerated. This is just for you to see, like, see it in the picture. But of course, this can be processed in a better way, right? But you can already see the white lamps in this case. And those can be used to give an effect of real meat. And that's what we call marbling. And also another thing that is very important, for example, when you cook is marbling, but also sizzling. And sizzling is the effect of when you cook and you see a lot of like, oil splitting out, oil and water when you cook it, and the sound of sizzling of meat, of cooking it, that's also something that is very important from a consumer point of view, because you want to get the same experience also when you cook, not just when you eat it, but when you cook, you want to get the sizzling effect. And that's also something that fat helps to get. Next. And here we have an example with cheese. For example, it's very, very important when you create a plant-based cheese that it behaves like the real one, right? And we have seen many examples in the market that when you buy a cheese in the retail, you try to get a slice out of the cheese, it doesn't stick. It's a stick together. I mean, from a consumer point of view, how good is that, right? You actually want the slices to break even, so you don't need to, they won't break. They will just separate the slices, right? So fat has also a very important role here, depending on what type of fat you use, and also what type of ingredients you pair the fat with. If you pair the fat with starches, for example, then you can actually separate them much better than if you just use, let's say, coconut oil. It also helps with the shreddability, again, for the same reason, because when you shred it, if it doesn't contain the right amount and quality of oils, then it won't shred. And then you cannot have a pizza, a mozzarella type pizza cheese, right? So look at how important these things are. It also helps with the melting. So when you put it in the oven, it melts evenly and it doesn't, burn, it doesn't separate in pockets. So fat is also helping on that. And when you use it for bread and for biscuits, of course, that is also very, very important to use the right things. And here, for example, we have also in the other ones, but here you can see one of our prototypes, and this is AAK Planet. That's the brand that Niall was referring earlier. And this is AAK Planet PVC. And this is, for example, made of a combination of coconut and shea, which is bringing the right characteristics to have the end product. And this is just one of the prototypes we have. But as Michael was saying in the beginning, the way we work with our customers is that depending on what they want to develop, we can help them to design the right plant-based fat to perform in their product. Because this is something very special to plant-based foods, is that all the matrices are different. So maybe your product is based on fava. Maybe this other company's product is based on chickpea or soy. And you cannot really always use the same because the proteins and the fats will interact differently. So it's not about having the perfect soy protein, not only, it's about having the perfect soy protein that works with the perfect fat ingredient. And that's something we can help you with. And next. And here we can actually see some proof points regarding the differences between using just pure coconut oil and using the solution that I was showing the previous slide, for example. When you use something that contains coconut oil only, then you will have a high saturated fat content. And this is something that, of course, consumers want to get away from because we all know that saturated fats are not the best for you. So here on the graph on the right, you can see that per 100 grams of plant-based cheese, you get a 21% of SAFA if you just use coconut oil. No surprise, right? But if you use another product that combines and is able to actually create the right structure, you can reduce quite a lot the saturated fat content and get a label that is much nicer and much more appealing to the consumers. And if you look into the taste, here we have on the left the sensory taste breakdown. you can see that it's actually quite similar to coconut oil, but it's even better because it doesn't have off flavor. So you can also get a good tasting cheese, even though you're not using something as commonly recognized as coconut oil. And this is something where we need to many times talk to our customers, because they think that they can use any fat, anything works. Yeah, everything works, but it doesn't work as well. So this is something we can help you with. Next. And here we have another graph. In this case, it's a texture analysis. And this is to show you, for example, how different it makes to use another fat than just pure coconut oil. You know, when you eat a cheese, you don't want it to be too hard. You want it to be bouncy. You want to feel that you are breaking into the cheese and it's soft and it's not too bad, right? The trials we have done with plant-based cheeses from the market is that many times it is very hard. And that's what you can see in the graph. When you use pure coconut oil in these cheeses, you get a very high force. So you actually need to bite, and it makes a difference when you compare it to like real mozzarella, for example. While if you use a blend of different ingredients where you're actually using fats that work with the matrix that you have, you can actually reduce the force you need, which gives you a much more bouncy effect on the product. So it gives a better sensorial experience when you eat it. And this is key when you eat a cheese. And this is the same. We haven't included here some slides for frozen desserts because we thought we would run out of time. But it would be the same for frozen desserts. For example, creaminess. We all know when we buy a plant-based ice cream that is many times a little bit icy. And this depends a lot in which geography you are. But most of the times, a plant-based ice cream is much more icier than a real ice cream. And this is pretty much affected, for example, for how the fat interacts with the protein present in the ice cream and the emulsifiers. And depending on the type of fat you use, you can get an icier ice cream or a more creamy ice cream. And in most of the regions, you're looking for a creamier ice cream because it's real to the dairy ice cream. So this is just some of the examples of things that fat can help you with, and why, please, before developing a product, think what fat you want to use. And if you are not sure, reach to the experts that know about the fats, and they will help you as much as they can. And with this, I will let to my colleague to continue. Thank you. Otherwise, I can just take it myself. As you have seen, plant-based oils and fats, they are very important, and choosing the right one can take your product to the next level. So thank you, everyone, and let's just open the room for questions.
Thanks, Javier.
Okay.
Thanks. If there are any questions?
Yeah, so I've been compiling some questions from this list. Thank you. That was fantastic, Javier. So I'm going to start right at the top with the first question that someone asked, and maybe this is one for Javier. What goes on in sensory cabins? Can you describe the process of a sensory focus grouping or a trial?
So it depends a lot on the application we're talking about. Right now, for example, if you talk about, let's say, meat, right? Normally what you have, and that's also what Niall was explaining before, in the centers of innovation, normally you have a room where you have what we call a sensory lab. And in this place, you have between, it depends a little bit, right? But it can be between 10 and 20 cabinets, like booths. And then in each one of them, there will be one person that has been trained into different sensory aspects of food. So for example, there will be a sensory panel of 10 people that we have invited on, for example, and they are experts into the sensory profile of meat. So these 10 people have been trained into what is the benchmark of what is good. So for example, you have a real plant-based burger, and that's the benchmark. We know when you bite on it, this is the juiciness you get. So, and that is rated as, let's say, 10. So all the people on that cabinet, they all know what is a 10. They know that a 10 is the meat experience, and they've been trained in doing that. That's just one of the examples. Then they're also trained, for example, the texture. How does it break down in your mouth when you eat it? How does it disperse? A 10 is the meat, again, because it's the benchmark. Another one can be the color. We're also evaluating things as the color. You know, what is the color that people want? Let's say it's this brownish burnt color of meat. So you get those 10 people trained on this is the benchmark. Then what we do is we develop different prototypes with our ingredients and with ingredients from other companies to develop the right plant-based burger. And we gave them to these people without telling them what is inside. They know nothing. They just know they're getting a burger. Many times they don't even know if it's a plant-based burger or if it's a real burger or what it is. They just get it. And it's one of these cabinets. It's like an individual unit, and they are separated. So you have like 10 small cubicles next to each other, and then there is like a circle or like a hole in front of you, and then a person will pass you a sample through that, right? And then you have like a questionnaire. So people will taste it at the same time, and they will reply to the questions in the questionnaire. And as I was telling you, one question could be, rate the juice release of this product. People try, it's not as good as meat. I will give it a 5. And someone else will give it a 6 or whatever it is. And then different people will rate it. And once this has been done, then we will collect the results. And then we will look through the different burgers, plant trials that we have done, and say, okay, this burger performs very well because most of the people, 80%, gave them an 8. And that's closer to the real meat. But maybe other burger performs better in other point, for example, in the color. And that helps us to develop things because we know, okay, this burger is very good with juiciness. What is the main responsible for juiciness? Fat, water, acidity. Okay, so maybe this burger works very well on that. We have those 3 parameters. Then this burger performs very well in the color. What does this burger have that makes color being so good? It might be that in this case, it dissolved very well in the fat because for some reason we chose a liquid oil in that burger. So all of these things is what we use. And that helps us because even though, of course, we're selling mainly the ingredients, the fat, which makes a big impact. But we also need to know how the fat interacts with the other ingredients because a food product is not just made of protein. And that is the message I want to make clear today. You need to make sure that everything works together in unison. So did I explain well what it was?
Yeah, Javier, it's a lot of fun actually hearing you describe this stuff. I also wanted to say there are some frontier areas like seafood, for example, where sensory terms of trade are not extremely well established. So we don't actually know, or there isn't really widespread open knowledge in the industry about the fundamental basis of flavor in a pomfret fish versus a cod fish versus a bluefin tuna. A lot of the work that's being done right now is at the characterization level, which means taking those fish and figuring out what is in them. So what combination of amino acids, phospholipids, etc. is in them, which gives them their flavor. And then you're working with people who can then describe that flavor and compare it across different products that are looking to emulate it. So there's a lot of open work going on in this area, guys. I think it's really fascinating. To answer another question, or rather to raise another question from the crowd. So I think it would be worth talking, Dheeraj, about plans for India, because this has come up multiple times. What are what's the progress looking like on co-development or R&D collaborations in India?
Okay, Varun, thanks a lot, everyone, for a lot of questions. I was just looking at the group chat. So I think reflecting on what we mentioned about India. So we have our Customer Innovation Center in Mumbai, in Chandivali, in Kanakia, Boomerang. And we have the capabilities to address all the co-development work around plant-based food. And we have already started making movements around plant-based food in terms of minced meat, in terms of plant-based burgers actually, and in terms of so I think we have the capabilities. We are upgrading our CI center to handle all the aspects of plant-based food going forward. So if the question is around, are we working on a co-development projects in plant-based food area, the answer is yes. We are working in India on those projects. Are we working on R&D this one? Yes, we are working as an organization R&D space also, that is across the globe also, as well as in India also.
Yeah, and stay tuned for updates from that, because we'll be working pretty closely with the team at AAK Kamani in India to help them get that up to speed really quickly with all of the experts that they already have in house, which is great.
Yeah.
Dheeraj, maybe you can answer another question about Indian food, which was actually asked by Shardul. He said, aside from cost and availability, what are the primary considerations when you're choosing fat for Indian food? I guess this would be a question about flavors and different things related to Indian food.
I think it's, as Chevi mentioned, it's around taste and enjoyment with that. And as I mentioned about it, it's all co-development approach actually. So and we know that in India, the taste actually changes every 50 or 100 or 150 kilometer. We have a lot of different regional taste profiles actually with this one. And that's where, the selection of oils and fat, or maybe the mix of, or the different blends changes with this one to ensure that to provide a similar kind of that. A chicken actually, which is being liked in the northern part of India, it's totally different when it comes to southern part of India. So plant-based chicken for northern part of India maybe will have a different oil and fat composition compared to the southern part of India with that one. So I think I have given my email address and Rahul's email address, and I think we are happy to take on, as Varun, you mentioned about any further discussion on co-development or addressing additional discussion on that one. And maybe if would like to offer a visit to our CI center also, if required, and maybe that also we could arrange with a mutual timing whenever we are back online.
Yeah, and so I'm guessing Javier is Spanish, and so maybe he also would like to say that Spanish food is different every 200 kilometers, and Spanish tastes are different every 200 kilometers. That's also I think true. And the next question in this area is, I'm going to take one about fortification and nutraceuticals. So, or nutraceutical aspects of food. What is the scope of adding vitamin D3 and vitamin B12 in plant-based meals? Have you seen any work in this area, Javier, that's interesting to you? And crucially, I think keeping the cost down, how does that happen?
This is a very good question, because actually there is not a vegan approved source right now in the market that is the cost efficient way for vitamin D, for example. I have heard though some companies, for example, that are trying to get a vitamin D from mushrooms. So the mushrooms absorb a lot of the materials, right? So they can actually get vitamin D from the ground, and that can actually be part of the mushrooms as well. And then you can use the mushroom in the products. I would say that this is a very nice area because, of course, these vitamins, they are liposoluble. So it could be a space. If there are customers interested, of course, it could be a nice area. It is very interesting because, of course, it hasn't been done too much work in this area right now. But it's definitely a space that you should be probably tougher.
Javier, just to add one on what Gabriel said, yes, the fortification and oil is a possibility that could be done, but maybe the claims that could be made on the label could be different on that one. So if there are certain interests around that, because when we work on the nutrition space as a part of our business segment, which Michael was explaining in the beginning, we have the fortification of omega-3, DHA, and all those different profiles that we are adding in the oil actually. So yes, there is a possibility of that, and I think we are happy to take this up in detail with a concerned person. Yeah.
Hi Varun, just to add on to what Dheeraj and Javier said, we do have provision, in our many of products as per the Indian regulation. We are fortifying with vitamin D2, which is a vegetarian source again. And also, as Dheeraj said, we can have an ideal balance of even amino acid profiling and all, and right balance of proteins to take care of good absorption. Along with this, one can go for even mineral fortification also. So all those knowledge base and facilities are in place here at AAK Kamani team. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm just going to ask one final question because a lot of questions are coming in and we're running up on the time limit. Clean label versus additives. This is something that's going to keep coming up because, as you know, a significant portion of consumption within plant-based is driven by healthfulness. Javier, you're exactly right that most consumption is ultimately boiling down to taste and flavor. But people want to see cleaner labels over time. So can you give a bit of a prediction about where the industry is going in terms of getting cleaner and cleaner on the labels?
For sure. I think that the plant-based is going through this transition right now where the main thing was, first of all, to get products that tasted good or eatable, and we're kind of like there now. We're kind of at that step. And then we do see that many customers are asking for if we can help them to have cleaner labels. And then many times they're trying to remove some, additives in plant-based meats a lot. For example, this methyl cellulose and all of these ingredients. And we see that is going to be the new market, clean label. Definitely getting to products that are as close as possible to, let's say, 10 ingredients or less. And this is where actually where ingredient partners, we can work together, because if you are able to find out that this ingredient works very well with this protein and this fat and that, we can actually maybe remove some of the things that we had to add before. So a lot about modification of ingredients, and also about creating new ingredients, as you all are aware. Did someone want to add something? Yeah.
No, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, right. And also now there is a lot of work looking into alternative proteins as well, right? So trying to design proteins, and we're also looking into designing fats that actually are able to take away some of these ingredients that people do not want, mostly because they cannot pronounce them. Not because, I mean, we all know that it doesn't need to be that they are bad, but consumers already think that they are not good for them. So, and we do what our customers, therefore consumers, are asking for. So I agree, clean label is the next thing.
Yeah, I want to echo that last point you made, Javier, in addition to everything else you said, but especially underline the last point. So yeah, I think a lot of the issue is we're currently formulating in this entire industry with one hand tied behind our back, right, in terms of functionality. So given that the raw materials that form the bulk protein ingredients for this sector, for the entire industry, have been optimized for something else. They have not been optimized for products like this. They've been optimized for other products. In many cases, actually, livestock feed, right? That's what soy was optimized for over decades. A lot of that is causing or creating the need to add those extra ingredients. So the industry will automatically become cleaner label over time as you get breeds of soy, and hopefully the opportunity in India is to create breeds of pulses, millets, even if they're not extremely high protein, crops that can go into plant-based foods. That will reduce the need to add all of these additional ingredients. So we're very early. It's just kind of the beginning of this industry. Wonderful. Hey, Dheeraj, I'm going to call upon you just to close out for AAK and just talk about how people in the group, in the community, because we've had over 70 people attend today, can reach out and interact with AAK's global network. Because I think several people wanted to figure out how to talk to Javier, and you might want to centralize that through India.
I think I propose that we have a dedicated team for plant-based food in India. That's Ankita Gupte, who takes care on the go-to-market team side, and Nutan Yadav, who takes care of the customer innovation, who's Javier's counterpart for India. So I will request. I have passed on my email address and Rahul's email address, but we'll share the email addresses of Nutan and Ankita, so that you could reach it out with that, and then maybe these people can coordinate and work closely with Javier on that. Is that okay, Varun?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And yeah, Nutan and Ankita are great. We normally share a video of this webinar after the call with everyone. So we'll share that, and everyone can contact Nutan and Ankita as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Varun. Just a quick final announcement before we end our call today. I've shared the sign-in sheet. If you've attended the call today and at the time about 80 attendees were there on the call, so please sign in, and if you have any questions for the AAK team, please leave it on the sheet. This way I could easily reach out to you with the PPT, with the recording, and also connect you with the AAK team, and they can reach back to you based on your questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Varun, thanks a lot to your team, and I think everyone on the call, this is just the beginning actually, so please feel free to reach out to the team, and I think we'll be happy to address your questions around co-development and how should we take the journey to the next step or to the next level. Thanks, Varun.
Yeah, this was fantastic. Thank you, Dheeraj, Rahul, Javier, Michael. I don't know if I missed out anyone, but thank you. Yeah, sorry, Niall, of course. Thank you everyone for taking the call. And by the way, this is a lesson to us not to schedule 2 sessions during one of these calls, especially if one of them is going to be so fascinating, because this one took up the entire time. So thank you so much for your time, everyone. We look forward to seeing you again next week, and we will connect you with AAK to take things forward.